I am Leora Mendel, 54 years old, and until this very moment, I had lived the part of the perfect wife and mother flawlessly. I've decided to start a new life without you. The words sliced through the air of the candlelit dining hall at the Azure Courtyard, a sophisticated restaurant in downtown Port Wellington, where our family had gathered to celebrate my daughter's graduation. Ezra, my husband of 28 years, stood beside his chair, champagne glass raised mid-toast, his voice shaking only slightly as he made the announcement. Conversations died. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Around 50 guests, all friends, colleagues, and relatives, fell silent, eyes darting between him and me, waiting for a reaction. For the tears, the shouting, the dramatic collapse everyone expected. Instead, I smiled. Congratulations on your honesty. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you've ever learned that silence can be more powerful than shouting. Ezra blinked, clearly unprepared for calm. Our daughter Mariella sat beside me, her graduation cap still on, her expression frozen. I could see her mind struggling to process what had just happened. From the corner of my eye, I caught sight of Claudine Royce, Ezra's much younger girlfriend, shifting uncomfortably near the bar, surrounded by the same group of friends who had smiled in my face for years but said nothing about the affair. Claudine had attended our Christmas dinners, had once cried on my shoulder about a job rejection, even called me Aunt Leora. The betrayal radiating from that corner of the room stung sharper than Ezra's words. With practiced steadiness, I reached into my handbag and withdrew a cream-colored envelope, sealed and elegant. I placed it on the white tablecloth beside Ezra's plate. "What's this?" he asked, his confident smirk faltering. "Something for you to read later," I said simply. Then I turned to my daughter. "Mariella, I am so proud of you, sweetheart. This day is still yours." I rose, smoothed my satin dress, and addressed the stunned crowd. "Please enjoy your meal. I wish you all a lovely afternoon." Dozens of eyes followed as I walked out, my heels clicking softly on marble floors. The heavy door closed behind me, cutting off the swell of whispers that erupted in my wake. Outside, the summer heat of Port Wellington pressed against me like a wall, but I welcomed it. It felt real grounding. Behind me, the restaurant door burst open and Ezra's voice, no longer suave but frantic, echoed through the air. "Leora, what the hell is this? What have you done?" I kept walking, a small smile tugging at my lips. He had no idea what was coming. That envelope held the opening act of a plan I had been crafting for months, my quiet, deliberate revenge. For nearly 3 decades, Ezra had been the dreamer in our marriage, while I was the one who made sure the light stayed on. When he lost money in risky ventures, I worked extra shifts. When his friend's business failed, I salvaged our finances. I had postponed my dream of opening a financial consultancy for women, always saying, after Mariella graduates, after Ezra finds his footing. But his footing had become a revolving door of failed pursuits. 6 months of one passion, another year of another. I was the stability he took for granted. 3 months ago, I began to notice small irregularities in our joint accounts. Tiny transfers to an unfamiliar number. Having managed our household finances for decades, I immediately recognized something was off. I could have confronted him right then, but instinct told me to wait. I wanted proof, not promises. So I began investigating quietly. What I uncovered was worse than I could have imagined. Ezra had been siphoning money into a separate account for over a year. He had been buying gifts for Claudine, paying for hotel suites, and even meeting real estate agents about a seaside home in Brighton Bay. Meanwhile, he told me to cut down on expenses for our retirement. Then came the messages once he forgot to delete. Claudine's name appeared again and again. "After Mariella's graduation, we'll finally be free. She won't see it coming. A public announcement will be cleaner." He had been planning this exit for months, down to the day. But what Ezra underestimated was that I wasn't some naive woman blinded by love. I was a senior financial strategist who understood asset trails, prenuptial agreements, and legal timing. 28 years ago, Ezra insisted we sign a prenup, back when I had inherited more than he had earned. Ironically, the clause meant to protect him would now destroy him. It contained a fidelity provision, one that voided his claims to marital property in the event of proven infidelity. So while he schemed, I documented. I gathered receipts, bank statements, photographs. I consulted attorneys. I even coordinated the serving of divorce papers the very morning of Mariella's graduation, ensuring everything was already filed before he could open his mouth at that restaurant. He thought he was announcing freedom. In truth, he was sealing his downfall. I didn't return to the celebration. I drove home to our elegant colonial-style house on Harper Hill, a property he had secretly promised to Claudine. I parked calmly, the sun dipping behind magnolia trees, and stepped inside the home that had once been filled with laughter. Everything looked the same. The framed photos of family trips, the antique clock from my late father, the leather sofa where Ezra and I had planned our lives. Yet everything had changed. In our bedroom, I opened his wardrobe and found 2 suitcases tucked behind his clothes, already packed. Predictable as always. Ezra loved control but never saw beyond his own reflection. My phone buzzed. Texts from friends, from Mariella, even from his sister Celine, who had flown in for the graduation. I replied only to my daughter. "I'm fine, my love. This isn't your burden. Enjoy your moment. We'll talk tonight. I'm proud of you, always." I had shielded her for months, unwilling to taint her final year with our crumbling marriage. She'd be angry later, but one day she would understand. That evening, Ezra's car screeched into the driveway. The front door slammed. "Leora!" he shouted, storming in, face flushed. The envelope was crumpled in his fist. "You served me with divorce papers today? On this day?" "I thought it suited your timeline," I replied calmly. "You wanted a fresh start. I'm helping you achieve it." "You had no right." "I had every right," I said evenly. "Just as you had every right to choose Claudine." His composure cracked. "The prenup expired years ago," he sneered. "Actually, it didn't," I said. Section 12 specifies the fidelity clause remains valid for the entire duration of the marriage. His face paled. The very contract he demanded would strip him of everything he thought was his. Ezra stared at me as though seeing me for the first time. The arrogance drained from his expression, replaced by something between confusion and fear. "You can't do this to me," he said finally, collapsing onto the couch. "We built this life together," I replied quietly. "And you chose to end it, just not in the way you expected." His phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it, but I could tell he already knew who it was. Claudine. I'd seen her messages before. "She'll be humiliated. We'll celebrate after it's done." "You've always been calculated, Leora," Ezra said, his tone sharp. "But this is cruel." "What's cruel?" I countered. "Is planning your wife's public humiliation as entertainment at your daughter's graduation lunch." His jaw tightened, but I continued before he could speak. "What you didn't realize is that I have been ahead of you at every turn. You wanted freedom. I'm granting it. Just not the version you imagined." He stood abruptly, pacing the length of the room. "You've recorded our private conversations? That's illegal." "Not in this state, Ezra," I said. "One-party consent. You really should have paid attention to those details you used to mock me for reading." His face blanched. I pressed play on my phone, the voice memo I prepared for this exact moment. Ezra's voice filled the room. "After Mariella's graduation, I'll tell her it's over. A public setting is better. She won't make a scene." Then Claudine's. "And she doesn't know about the money?" Ezra again. "None. She trusts me completely. That's her weakness." The recording stopped. Silence stretched thick as smoke. He stared at me, chest rising and falling fast. "You went too far." "No, Ezra," I said softly. "You did." He ran a trembling hand through his hair. "I need to make some calls." "Your lawyer would be a good start," I replied. "I'll be staying at Celine's tonight." His head snapped up. "My sister's house?" "Yes," I said. "She's been aware of your affair since last Christmas. She tried to give you a chance to fix things before she came to me." The realization hit him like a blow. He looked stunned, then bitter. "Everyone's turning on me." "Ironic," I murmured, "considering how you've turned on everyone who loved you." I picked up my overnight bag, the one I had packed days earlier, and walked to the door. "What about Mariella?" he demanded, his voice cracking. "Have you thought about how this affects her?" I turned, meeting his gaze for the last time that night. "Don't you dare use our daughter to justify your betrayal. You didn't think about her when you planned your new life with Claudine." His phone buzzed again. He looked at the screen, grimaced, and muttered, "She's already moved her things into the apartment." I almost laughed. "You mean the apartment under both your names? The lease you signed last month?" He hesitated. "Yes." "Why?" "You might want to check with the leasing office. That application was never finalized. Your credit flagged it. The agent called our home number, and I handled it personally." The look on his face was priceless, panic mixed with disbelief. I walked out, leaving him to absorb the first domino of his unraveling life. Celine lived across town, in a cozy bungalow near the university where she taught modern literature. When she opened the door and saw me standing there, she pulled me into a fierce embrace. "I just got off the phone with Mariella," she said, leading me inside. "Are you okay?" "Better than I expected," I admitted. She poured 2 glasses of wine. Ezra's spectacle at the restaurant unbelievable. My own brother, humiliating his wife in front of half the city. "He thought he was in control," I said simply. He never realized the storm he was walking into. We moved to her sunroom, surrounded by soft lamplight and stacks of novels. I had always admired her independence, the peace she carried that I'd once mistaken for loneliness. "So," she said, leaning forward, "what was in that envelope?" "The divorce filing," I replied. "Documentation of his hidden transfers, the prenup, everything." Celine let out a low whistle. "The same prenup he demanded when you married?" "Yes. Back then he said it was to protect his future. Ironic how it now protects mine." Her smile turned wry. "Poetic justice." My phone rang. It was Mariella. I hesitated before answering. "Mom," she said breathlessly, "I'm coming over." "No, honey. You don't have to. I'm already in the car," she interrupted. "Dad's telling everyone you've lost your mind. He's saying you've been planning this for months." "Let him talk," I said evenly. "The truth will outlive his stories." 20 minutes later she arrived, still wearing her white graduation dress. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. She ran into my arms sobbing. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked against my shoulder. "I didn't want to steal your joy," I whispered. "You've worked too hard for this day." She pulled back, tears glistening. "Well, he ruined it anyway." We sat together on Celine's sofa as I explained everything. How I found the transfers, how I discovered the affair, how long I had prepared. Mariella's anger burned brighter than mine. "He's been different for months," she said. "Always on his phone. I just thought he was stressed." Celine nodded gently. None of us want to believe the worst in the people we love. My phone buzzed again. An email from Philip Ainsworth, my attorney. The emergency injunction had been approved. Ezra's hidden accounts were frozen pending full discovery. I showed it to Mariella. "Good," she said fiercely. "He deserves it." "He's still your father," I reminded her softly. "Maybe," she said, "but right now I can't even look at him." Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Celine went to answer it and returned a moment later, her face tight. "It's Ezra," she said quietly. "And he's not alone." Claudine stood just behind him, clearly uncomfortable. Her blue dress was wrinkled, her hair slightly messy. Ezra, on the other hand, looked furious, jaw set, eyes hard. "Leora," he began sharply, "you need to stop this nonsense. Unfreeze the accounts. Let's talk like adults." Mariella stepped forward, her chin high. "Adults don't announce affairs at their children's graduation lunch, Dad." Ezra blinked as if noticing her for the first time. "This doesn't involve you." She laughed bitterly. "Doesn't involve me? You destroyed our family in front of everyone I know." Claudine shifted awkwardly. "Ezra, maybe we should go." "No," he snapped. "I'm not leaving until she stops this madness." Celine crossed her arms. "You're the only one acting mad, Ezra. My sister-in-law is showing remarkable restraint." I stayed seated, calm amid the chaos. 4 years I had been the peacekeeper. That woman no longer existed. "The accounts remain frozen," I said evenly. "The court hearing is in 3 days. The judge will decide then." 3 days. Ezra shouted. "What am I supposed to do until then?" "You have your private account," I said. "The one you've been funneling money into for months. That should suffice." Claudine's head whipped toward him. "You what? How much?" Ezra's face reddened. This isn't the time. It never is, I said. Cracks began to form between them already. Leave, Celine said firmly. You've done enough for one day. Mariella looked her father dead in the eyes. You taught me honesty matters. So be honest. Did you ever think about how this would destroy us? He faltered. People grow apart. No, Dad, she said. Cowards run apart. Ezra's lips parted, but no words came. The silence that followed Mariella's words was heavy enough to crush breath. Ezra's mouth opened and closed like he wanted to argue, but there was nothing left to defend. Claudine tugged at his sleeve, whispering something, but he yanked his arm free. I think you should both leave, Celine said firmly. You've done enough damage for one evening. Ezra turned to Mariella, desperate now. Pumpkin, you'll understand someday. Relationships change. People grow apart. What I understand, Mariella interrupted, voice trembling, is that you cheated, lied, and used me as cover for your affair. You told me money was tight while you were buying jewelry for someone else. Ezra's face paled. That's not. It is, she snapped. And I can't look at you right now. Please leave. He looked between us, searching for sympathy, but found none. Finally, he muttered something under his breath and stormed out. Claudine followed, but not before shooting me a look that was half apology, half resentment. When the door shut, the house was quiet again. Mariella sank onto the couch beside me, her shoulders shaking. I've never talked to him like that before, she whispered. I wrapped an arm around her. Standing up for yourself isn't disrespect. It's strength. Celine reappeared with a fresh bottle of wine. To new beginnings, she said softly, raising her glass. To new beginnings, I echoed. 2 mornings later, rain tapped gently on my windshield as I arrived at the Port Wellington courthouse. The sky was gray, the air heavy with that sharp metallic scent that comes before a storm. Inside, I met Philip Ainsworth, my attorney, who greeted me with a reassuring nod. Ezra arrived moments later, looking worn, his usually crisp suit slightly rumpled, his eyes shadowed with sleeplessness. Beside him stood a young attorney who looked barely out of law school. It was clear he had hired someone cheap and last minute. The courtroom was small and quiet. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair and eyes like polished glass, reviewed our documents carefully. This prenuptial agreement appears to be valid, she said. Mr. Mendel, do you contest its authenticity? Ezra's lawyer cleared his throat nervously. Your Honor, we believe the agreement has expired due to. The judge interrupted, her voice firm. Section 18 clearly states that the duration extends for the entire marriage, plus any related legal proceedings. There is no expiration clause. Ezra shifted in his seat, muttering something to his lawyer, who looked increasingly uncomfortable. Furthermore, the judge continued, the evidence of undisclosed fund transfers violates the financial disclosure terms under Section 23. She set the papers down and looked directly at him. This court will maintain the freeze on joint accounts until full financial discovery is completed. Mrs. Mendel retains possession of the family home under the Fidelity Clause. Mr. Mendel may access his personal account for living expenses only. Ezra's face turned scarlet. This is ridiculous, he muttered. The judge's gaze sharpened. I would advise you, Mr. Mendel, to review your own signature before calling this court ridiculous. The session ended swiftly. The judge scheduled a full hearing in 30 days. Outside the courtroom, Ezra caught up to me in the hallway. Leora, please. We don't have to do this. I looked at him steadily. We already did, Ezra. The moment you made your announcement at that restaurant. He reached out as if to touch my arm, but I stepped back. 28 years should count for something, he pleaded. It did, I said quietly. Until you decided it didn't. I turned and walked away, leaving him standing alone under the cold fluorescent lights. News spread quickly through our circle of friends. Some called to offer support. Others wanted gossip. I gave them all the same simple answer. Ezra and I are separating. These things happen. Meanwhile, his perfect facade began to crumble. The business he'd bragged about was failing. The beach property deal fell apart. The luxury car deposit he'd made was refunded after the bank declined further payments. 2 weeks later, Celine called me, laughing so hard she could barely speak. You'll love this, she said. Claudine moved out. I wasn't surprised, though the speed of it was impressive. She told her friend that she didn't sign up to date a man with debt, Celine added. Apparently Ezra's empire wasn't quite as grand as he led her to believe. I chuckled softly. He's always been good at illusions. Meanwhile, I was building something real. Using the savings I protected years ago, I rented a small office downtown and launched my long-delayed dream, Mendel Financial Transitions, a consultancy for women rebuilding their lives after major changes. My first 2 clients were divorcees referred by Philip. Within weeks, word spread. I was finally using my skills for something meaningful. Mariella called often from her new job in Ravensshire, where she worked for a marketing firm. "Mom, I'm so proud of you," she told me one evening. "You're helping women the way no one helped you." "I'm just teaching them what I had to learn the hard way," I replied. Preparation is power. The satisfaction was unlike anything I'd known. I was no longer defined by someone else's dreams. I was building my own. 3 months later, the final hearing took place. It fell poetically on what would have been our 29th wedding anniversary. Ezra looked older, smaller somehow. His expensive suit couldn't hide the exhaustion etched into his face. His company had begun to fold. Most of his former friends had distanced themselves. Claudine had moved to Brighton Bay, already involved with a real estate developer. The judge upheld the prenuptial agreement in full. Ezra left with his personal savings and the struggling remnants of his business. I retained the house, my retirement accounts, and 70% of our shared assets. The irony was poetic. The very document Ezra once demanded to protect himself had become the key to his undoing. Outside the courthouse, he approached me one last time. "I made a terrible mistake," he said quietly. "Is there any chance we could start again?" "No, Ezra," I said gently. "That chapter is over." He nodded, eyes downcast. "You deserve happiness." It was the first honest thing he had said to me in years. 6 months later, my consultancy had grown rapidly. I moved into a larger office and hired 2 associates. The walls were painted cream and gold, sunlight streaming through wide windows. The women who came to me were often frightened at first, uncertain, broken. But they always left empowered. Mariella visited one afternoon, bringing coffee and her radiant smile. "You know what's funny?" she said. "If Dad had just been honest from the beginning, he might have kept half of everything." I smiled. "Sometimes people can't see past their own greed." She nodded. "Still, I'm glad you're finally free." I looked around my office, my own name on the glass door, my daughter beaming with pride, the hum of quiet determination filling the air. For the first time in years, I felt peace. The envelope I'd handed Ezra at that restaurant hadn't just been my escape, it had been my rebirth. In reclaiming my finances, I had reclaimed something much deeper, myself. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you believe that sometimes losing everything is how we finally find ourselves.